DEI training across the West is losing ground, actually, which is good news.
Fortunately, yes.
Yeah, very good news. How do you feel about diversity, equity, and inclusion training, Peter?
I think it is truly. I think it's a manifestation of the derangement syndrome. I think it's another example of an idiotic thing. These are offices searching for tasks. They and I have a lot extensive experience, as you know, with being hounded by diversity boards.
Why don't you give people a quick summary of that, actually? Because people might not know.
So I fought the orthodoxy at my institution, Portland State University, and I was brought up on charges, investigation after investigation. I was accused of all manner of things, and they don't have. Do you have the expression due process here?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It comes from here.
Oh, sorry. I never really know, like, how
Your legal framework is English.
No, that I know, but I never really know if the terms in anyway. So
habeas corpus is 17th century English.
I had no due process. I'm not familiar with English law, so I apologize for English.
Just take American law. American law is literally like English law from like the 18th century.
Okay, so due process is identical, the same.
Yeah,
okay, so there, I had no due process. I was
at least in moral status. I mean, I don't know whether the actual thing is, but anyway, Karen.
Well, that's what I say. So I can't face my accusers.
No, of course we have. Yeah, all of these things are from English law.
Yeah. No, that I know. Okay, so my experience was these are mechanisms that people use to have a kind of ideological conformity. Even the threat of being investigated has a silencing chill on the discourse.
And that's the point of it. Right. That's exactly the point. And the institution is weighted against you. I mean, when I visited you, you'd been moved to the basement.
Oh, that's right.
It was this awful, humiliating office. I remember going into your office and thinking, well, they're treating you well, aren't they?
Yeah.
These people are obviously singling you out and trying to get rid of you.
Yeah, it was a pretty it was a horrific experience, but I being constantly investigated and being harassed, but it brought us it made me realize who, to a certain extent, my true friends were. All of the people who were still mouthpieces of the orthodoxy. The other thing that was really interesting about that is DEI offices, you never really know who believes what. And you don't know who believes what because they've been really successful at creating a culture of fear. So if someone will come to you and whisper to you, but people will just be silent and nod because they don't want the machine to come for them next.
And also, if they were to be spotted, like whispering to you, then they would be informed upon. Right. And they would fall under suspicion.
Very Stalinist.
Totally. It's completely Stalinist. Anyway, thank God these things, and for anyone who doesn't know, DI training is basically the woke formatting of the company through the HR department.
Right.
And it's the way that they have taken over all of these companies. And this is one of the reasons why you're seeing all of the pride flags now, because we're June, right? And now pride flags are everywhere. Well, these are going to be put up by the HR departments because of all these people who've gone through DI training because they've been taught that it is good to do.
And if people genuinely believe this, if corporations and companies genuinely believe this, then why don't they do that in the Middle East?
Why don't they do it every other day of the year? Yeah. Why do they need a special month? Right. Exactly. Why don't they do? There are loads of tells that show this is all very cynical. But before we go on, if you want to support us, go over, sign up, watch Connor's podcast, Daycare Will Destroy the West. And I totally agree with this. Daycare's bad for kids, for parents, for mothers, for families, right? This is not good to have that you go off and work a job that is almost exclusively to pay for the daycare. Like, daycare costs a fortune, an absolute fortune. And my wife was like, okay, shall I get a job and put the kids in daycare? I was like, well, how much do you think you're going to earn? And we totted it up, and it was about as much as the daycare was going to cost.
You know why I put my kid in daycare?
No. Why?
I had a totally different reason for this. I put my kid in Chinese immersion daycare.
Oh, right. I don't know what that is.
They just speak Chinese to him. And,
oh, right. So they learn Chinese.
Yeah, my son has been in Chinese immersion since he's been 3.
Right.
And that was the reason that we put him in daycare.
Okay, well, that's like a practical reason. But for most people, there's literally just, we need to work, and therefore we need to pay for daycare. So, okay, but...
Well, they must think that the calculus, they must just do the numbers.
Sure. And it edges out just slightly. But the thing is, there are going to be loads of economic calculators. So look, if half the workforce is essentially, the workforce essentially doubled, then that's going to create a downward pressure on wages. And so one wage won't support 2 families anymore and things like this. And now I'm not an economist.
So I wonder if a consequence of that is Johann Hari says that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's community. And I think we've been losing a lot of our communities. And, I know with myself, it started off my grandparents helped raise me in Massachusetts, and my grandmother got sick, and then I helped take care of her. Yeah. And so I wonder if we've lost not just the nuclear family, but the extended family of people who come in and help. You mentioned your mother-in-law coming and helping with your kids.
Think about like the sort of boomer mindset of, I'm going to make it on my own, right? Because when my parents, and I fell into this, like, you move far away from your parents, right? And it's like, well, why the hell would you do that? Yeah. But that's creating a whole series of extra problems for you and taking away a bunch of support systems. And it's a totally Western thing. The English-speaking world really suffers from this. Like, the Mediterranean world has got that sort of extended family structure, right? Yeah. And it's genuinely something the English-speaking world kind of suffers from.
I wonder if that, and I'm out of my depth here, but I wonder if that manifests itself in homelessness.
Oh, it's quite possible that it does. But anyway, let's go check that out, because I think that is fair and a really good critique. But anyway, going back to it, so DEI training, again, something that's destroying the West, or was, until it started failing, thank God. So I just, went around and just looked for DEI courses, and I found this. I mean, this guy runs a DEI course. It calls HR University, which is one of the largest communities for HR professionals. Thousands of global members, 500 companies around the world, has been featured by Forbes. And so they've done like all sorts of major companies, right? And so this is the sort of thing. So, I mean, it's literally, if you go to the next one, there's hardly any point going through it, because you know exactly what is going to be in here. So it's about inclusion and diversity.
Equity.
We want to include everyone regardless of racial and ethnic diversity, gender diversity, age, religion, sexual orientation, disability, blah, 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 blah. You know exactly right. And what it means is to break people down into individual categories and manage them in an actual framework. As in, literally, you have a manager with a spreadsheet which literally divvies up the races and genders and any other category that they choose in order to essentially micromanage an entire department and whatever. And so this is, I think, a very unnatural, anti-human way of doing things, because now people are essentially, barriers have been put up between individuals, so they can't negotiate their own relationships with one another. Now they have to mediate it through a third party who has a particular ideological perspective. So this, again, it's very Soviet.
Yeah. It demeans the meritocracy as well.
Absolutely, but it means that you aren't in control of your own relationships. You have to mediate through an authority figure. So it becomes, this is the sort of Soviet way of breaking down the society. Yeah. You have to go through the party, and I really don't like it. And so they've got these everywhere, right? So we'll just skip and move on, right? There's a massive industry worth billions, but it doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
Not only does it not work, it's opposite land.
Yeah. Can we go to the next one? Sorry, this is from the Atlantic recently, and it just doesn't work. Piece. It just doesn't work, right? So in this piece, I'm just going to quote from a few things, right? So they say a recent New York Times op-ed by Jesse Singal delved into the multi-billion-dollar diversity, equity, and inclusion industry. While its advocates claim that diversity workshops can foster better intergroup relations, improve the retention of minority employees, close recruitment gaps, and so on, in practice there is little evidence that any of these initiatives work. And the type of diversity training that is currently in vogue may well have a net negative effect. Put more simply, perhaps 15% of human beings are psychologically ill-suited to dealing with difference. And when DEI industry programming deliberately raises the salience of race in a given organization with the intention of urging anti-racism, the effect is to exacerbate differentism. So the more you highlight the differences, the more people feel estranged from one another. A deep body of scholarship across history, political science, and economics all broadly point towards the conclusion that increasing the salience of race can have harmful results. I mean, you're literally saying you're different to me. You're different to me. You're different to me. You're always, and it's, well, how can that breed bonds and togetherness? How can it do it?
So here's the problem with this. So we briefly spoke about this, but it's worth talking about. Yep. That clip that the woman kept saying, I don't care how much evidence you show me for trans and difference in physical. Yep. Trans women are women. They belong in women's sports.
Emma Vigeland.
Oh, you remember that? Good. Yeah. So the problem that I have with a lot of this stuff, and I think Connor's fantastic. I think Michael Shermer, who tweeted this stuff out, is fantastic. Who's constantly trying to show that, like, look, this is the evidence these people simply don't care about evidence.
No.
Like, if they cared about evidence, that they wouldn't think a woman has a penis, right? I mean, you can't get any more.
That's a great quote. If they cared about evidence, they wouldn't think a woman has a penis. That sums all of this up.
I guess I can just stop talking then, yeah. But it's only a gotcha if someone buys into the system.
Yes.
It would be like me pulling out the Quran and being upset with you that you ate bacon today.
Yeah.
But you don't buy into the Quran, so that's not a gotcha for you.
No.
So people hold the trans ideology or participate in the orbit of gender ideology precisely because they believe it's a moral thing to do, and that morality is immune to any kind of... They don't formulate those beliefs on the basis of evidence. Yeah. So there is no gotcha. There's no amount of evidence that you're going to bring in to, for example, implicit bias training, no matter what it is, equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging.
And you know what the answer will always be from them. We're not doing it enough. And in fact, we'll get to that in a minute, right?
Yeah, because that's part and parcel of wokeism, is that the more woke you are, the more you realize you cannot be woke enough.
And it's any ideology, really. You know, why is it failing? Well, we're not doing it hard enough. We need more of it, more of it. It's always its own
solution.
And
that's also important to note, that's the assumption of race of Robin DiAngelo, another ultra mega bestseller. The assumption is, it's not, is racism present, but how did racism manifest itself? So that's your only lens through which you're looking at reality. So it's none of these things are going to move the needle. They're not gotchas because people don't buy into the system.
No, and that's exactly it. And so and also like you're saying, like, it doesn't. Any failures are insufficient amounts of adherence to orthodoxy. The failure isn't with the orthodoxy.
Okay, so if I may give a brief example,
Please.
This is not my example. This is Helen Pluckrose's example, a fellow person on your island here, who lead author of Cynical Theories. So there's a shopkeeper.
Yeah.
And at the exact same time, through a single door, a white person comes into the shop and a black person comes into the shop. Who should the shopkeeper service first? If the shopkeeper services the black guy, you say, well, you only service the black guy because you thought he was going to steal stuff from the store, so that's racist. If the shopkeeper serves the white guy, you say you only went to him first because he was white. So the whole ideology is literally established with the assumption that there's racism, sexism, patriarchy, etc., embedded into the system. And so if you start with the assumption that racism is ever present, just how did it manifest? Well, of course you're going to get to where we are.
Yeah. There's no other place that you're going to end up. And I mean, they just come to the conclusion, well, I think it's clear that the goal should be to reduce the salience of race in public debate and focus on direct objects of reducing poverty, making policing more accountable, improving schools, reducing air pollution, expanding health insurance coverage, and otherwise solving the big problems of American society. Yeah, there is that. But one of the problems that you have there is that you're going to have to put a burden of obligation on the people who you're trying to help. As in, you want to improve public health. Well, okay, one thing is stop filling your face with Big Macs. That's part of...
That was never mentioned during the pandemic, by the way.
No,
at least in the U.S.
No. Well, do you not remember the governor of California sat there with chips?
Newsom?
Yeah. No. So New York, I meant. He was the New York governor was sat there with chips, eating them, saying, "This burger. Think of that when you're getting a vaccine." It's like, how is that responsible?
Right.
Like,
And
literally
right.
promoting junk food. It's crazy. But that's the problem. You know, making like, okay, we want to reduce police violence. Okay, well, how about you have to have a conversation with those people who want to fight the police. That's what you have to do.
So I'll give you a quick example. In the city of Portland, thank goodness, I just moved out of that cesspool. The mayor, Ted Wheeler, him, by the way, in his Twitter bio.
Yeah. We're well familiar with Ted Wheeler here.
Yeah. If I were more prone to conspiracies, I would believe that he were actually installed by an enemy state like North Korea, Iran, Russia. Someone did a study that found that the gang reduction task force had a disproportionate number of young African American men.
Oh, that's right.
So he does away with the gang reduction task force. One guess as to what happened.
I'm guessing gang violence went through the roof.
Yeah, and is it guys like me, middle-aged white guys? No, it's there. His consequence. The consequence of him doing that is now we have more young dead black men. Yep,
that's literally everywhere. Right. Everywhere that the left has been operating. And they don't care.
Him.
That's a good point. Moving on, the question in October last year has been raised in this sort of these spaces, the HR newspapers. should we scrap it or not? Well, I read through this article, and there are only arguments in there to say no. There's no argument as to why we should, which is interesting, isn't it? Again, speaking back to Hayek's totalitarian propaganda, if you've only got one argument, which is in one way, well, that's what you're going to believe. And so one magazine came up with an idea. We need to add something to DEI. DEI isn't working because we don't have, quote, cultural intelligence. Go to the next one, John. As a certified cultural intelligence trainer...
Make stuff up. I love it. We can just like make stuff up now.
Yeah. I am also a certified cultural intelligence trainer.
And because of your subjective experience and my subjective experience, my lived experience tells me that you are.
Yeah.
No, and I certify your certification. So there's a multi-layer of credentialing. There's a hierarchical credentialing.
I understand that you're actually a doctor of cultural intelligence.
Correct.
Which I certified at lunch earlier.
Correct.
I just thought it's such BS. I see the unfortunate outcomes when cultural intelligence is not a part of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. When DI work solely focuses on race, gender, and not broader dimensions of diversity, the majority group, white, cisgender, straight men, often feels left out. Well, I wonder why they would.
Yeah.
I mean, they're being explicitly targeted by DEI training, and they're saying, like, this isn't working for them. Well, no, it's not. Of course it's not. This perpetuates the problem which holds those with the majority of positional power and influence as not engaging in DEI work. So attacking straight white men for being straight white men hasn't really resonated well with straight white men.
Yeah, that's why they have to redefine the definition of racism and include power in there.
So anyway, this didn't work. They do give us a definition of cultural intelligence, right? They say it's an outsider's seemingly natural ability to interpret someone's unfamiliar and ambiguous gestures in a way that person's compatriots would. So you have to be part of every culture to understand all of these cultures. You know, I was saying about how we say thank you when we get off the bus in England. Well, that's the cultural intelligence person would tell you that. They'd know. You know, you don't have cultural. I'm revoking your cultural intelligence.
Yeah,
degree.
no, you should actually mention that because that's interesting. So we went to the breakfast place, and I thought I was being polite by saying yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And you said that in Britain you also have to say please and thank you with like each. So I usually say thank you at the very end.
Yeah.
But so there were some interactions. But what was
and you weren't saying thank you, and I could tell she thought it was rude.
Yeah, I know, and I'm glad that you told me that. But I would add that the correct response is, geez, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah,
and now I know. And so when I do it in the future, then I can do that. Like you also said to me that I didn't know. So when I get on the bus, I do public transport everywhere. I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get 800 hate emails. But the public transportation in this country is freaking awesome.
Stop.
No, I know.
It's just the public transportation in America.
Yeah, okay.
It's diabolical.
Okay. Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. But so you said to me that when you get off the train, you should say thank you.
Not on the train because there's
no, on the train, on the bus. I take the bus everywhere.
It's polite to say thank you.
Yeah. So I didn't know that.
It's just polite to do.
Yeah. Well, now that I know, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. It's, and it's not like you're going to get evil stares if you don't. It's just it's the right thing to do, right? But anyway, so DEI training is failing. So they're going to try and save it. This is from February 2023. Of course, you can see Forbes. Look, we need to improve this. Look, we can see that we're getting tanked here. This is not going our way. People actually hate this. It turns out that it doesn't work. People hate being told that they're evil because of their race or gender or sex. People also don't like being patronized because of their race, gender, and sex. What can we do to improve them?
Notice how class isn't in this at all. Just things with identity level salience, right?
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. But they don't really have any good answers in this. But they do note that literally, most workers don't really approve of all of this and would like something else, if not, if just nothing, frankly. So we'll move on from that just because we're running out of time a bit. Because in mid-February, it turns out that Lotus Place were just abandoning it. Just, nah. But they weren't abandoning it for moral reasons. It's because there's an economic downturn. And it turns out that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a luxury belief. And if you're coming into hard times, the first thing that gets cut are the luxuries.
Yeah, that's Rob Henderson's idea. It's a very, very, very cool idea. He's associated with the University of Austin too.
It's totally true, though.
It is. It's a luxury belief. But what about all those? What about all of us who started talking about this and lost friends, and everyone freaked out that we're on the wrong side of history, and now it's happening?
Yep. I can't believe the workshops on microaggressions being cut.
Oh my goodness, what's going to happen?
Tens of thousands of workers got laid off which meant most of the DEI teams. I mean, one of my favorite things was when Elon Musk took over Twitter.
Oh God!
And he just fired them all.
It was heaven.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it truly was heaven.
I remember going to sleep with a very big smile on my face that evening. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. Anyway, yeah, so lots of people got laid off. DailyMail.com spoke with one of the laid off DEI workers, a Californian woman whose views on social issues had made her outspoken in meetings. And they were targeted. Get rid of the annoying, whiny feminists now. Love it. Anyway, moving on to May 2023, which is really why this caught my attention. Texas and other places in America are moving to simply ban it because it's racist and sexist and all of these other ists that are things that are undesirable in institutions and public life. Legislators in both chambers in Texas has approved the Senate Bill 17, which is going to be signed by Governor Greg Abbott, which will dismantle DEI offices, programs, and training in the next 6 months. The bill also bans institutions from mandating any DEI as a condition of employment or admission to a university, and orders all hiring practices to be colorblind and sex neutral. That's all we wanted.
Yeah, I just want to take a step back from this and say, when this first started to creep into society, it was like a blitzkrieg without a war, and then the next thing you know, boom. And when you questioned this and you said, well, wait a second, this didn't even exist last year. Now it's ubiquitous. It's literally every year. Yeah. Shouldn't the response to that be to give a reason why, as opposed to attack the person who questions it?
Yep.
And now we're seeing that people are realizing that this is an ill-conceived trend or a fad or what have you. But instead of saying, you know what, we were hoodwinked by this ideology, we made a mistake, mistakes happened, I predict you'll see gaslighting. We never believed it. We never wanted to.
And they've gaslit the whole way. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's a good thing. It's happening.
That's it's gender affirming care. That's what they do. Gender affirming care.
Exactly. They've gaslit us the whole way, and then they'll be like, "We were never in favor of that."
Right.
Like people now. I was never in favor of lockdowns. I was never in favor of mask mandates. I was never in favor of.
You're starting to see it now, just a little bit. I don't know if it hit here, but with defunding the police.
Yeah, I was never in favor of that. Oh, come on. We've got video. It was literally like 5 years ago.
Right.
In this time period, the videos are all still on Twitter. We can find you saying these things, you liars.
And I think those are the two of the stupidest ideas in my 56 years of life I have ever heard. Not just stupid, but ghastly.
Awful.
The gender affirming care for minders and the defunding the police are two of the most demonstrably idiotic, false ideas I've ever come across.
See, I don't think that goes hard enough, right? Because idiotic implies mistake. That's wrong. I think it's evil, right? And I hate to agree with the Christians.
With the gender affirming care stuff.
Yeah, I think there's malintent.
I'll give that to you.
It's genuinely, you are malevolent and you're trying to hurt people.
Yeah.
And you are enjoying that you're hurting people. You want to bring them into your cult of hurt people, fellow wounded people, people who have got something wrong with them, and you want more. Misery is loving the company.
God, it is really heartbreaking when you think about those kids, isn't it?
That's I genuinely try not to, but every now and again I'll post something I've come across on like Reddit or wherever on Twitter, and it'll be someone like, nobody told me how difficult this was, how I would feel, what it would be like.
I'll be a lifelong medical patient.
But also, like, I woke up every day. Like, there was one where there was this obviously young woman where she's like 20 or something. She's like, I miss my breasts. I don't know what I was thinking. I was 16 or whatever, and now they're gone forever. And I just wish. And
I just want to say, if somebody is listening to this and they think to themselves, "Oh, these guys," I mean, come on, just think about this.
We've got kids, man. We're worried about this.
Yeah. I mean, would you let your kid get a tattoo?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't let them get a bloody tattoo.
Right. So if 15,
Yeah.
so I'd like to see and that's nothing.
Yeah.
A tattoo is nothing compared to what we're talking about here.
It's not going to ruin your life unless it's cross all over your face or something. But it's not going to ruin your life. And this is genuinely going to just destroy the capacity you have for relationships. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Child rearing, your ability to raise children, your ability to have a family.
It's literally sterilization. Yeah. It's insane. Insane how bad this is. So anyway, one of the Democrat Texas lawmakers, what do you think they had to say?
They're against it.
Yeah, but why? The exact words. What are the exact words they use? You probably do know.
On the wrong side of history?
Exactly. Ron Reynolds warned his colleagues, don't be on the wrong side of the history. Don't let Texas be the next state to get a travel advisory, referring to the NAACP's recent warning against travel to Florida.
Yeah.
Laughable.
Yeah, and the head of the NAACP, by the way, lives in Miami.
Oh, really?
And, think 6 members are on the border in Florida.
Incredible. But yeah, he literally said, "Don't be on the wrong side of history." I mean, like a parrot, like a literal like robot, like a button that you press. Anyway, and finally for this one, the university was of course not happy. Ron DeSantis had signed similar legislation earlier this month.
Yeah, we can talk about this. Is a lot to talk about if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Sure, go on.
So he's working with Chris Rufo to get this insanity out.
God save Chris Rufo, by the way. Done the Lord's work on this, Chris Rufo.
Chris has become a friend. He's really taking the fight to him, to them. And there are two schools of thought on this. One is, so this is Karl Popper's Paradox of Tolerance, 1945 piece. One part of this is that so it's just so dastardly that and so sinister that you have to take a step back and think about what these offices are trying to do. As I've said repeatedly, you cannot have free speech in offices of DEI. You get to choose. You can have one or the other, and you need to be honest about what your choice is for your students and their parents who go there.
And before we go on, just to be clear, I've read Karl Popper's Paradox of Tolerance. He would be on our side, because the entire thing is essentially an expressly anti-communist screed.
Yeah.
Saying, no, the communists and the Nazis are not willing to have a debate within a defined parameter, a democratic debate. And so they have to just be kept out of this debate. And this is why Karl Popper would be with us on this. That it's always misrepresented. That it's like, oh, he would, he'd oppose the right wing. No, the right wing's very democratic, actually. They all want to have a conversation about these things.
In its current manifestation, I agree 100%. So going back to
what... get it different, but...
So going back to what Rufo wants to do is he wants to kick the people out of universities who are against intellectual homogeneity and they're basically offices of DEI.
Yeah.
That has been framed as wanting to put in your own ideologues. I don't think it could certainly be the case. I don't think that's going to be the case. That's an empirical question. But the fact that these people are overtly and explicitly weaponizing offices of diversity, equity, inclusion against anyone who does not toe the line, like Charles Nagy at CFI in Florida. The fact that they're doing that and wanting to stop that is only a good thing.
And it would be very easy to tell as well. Is there a homogenous ideological movement in opposition to intersectionality? And the answer is no.
Yeah, I think it was Sol who said, "I'll believe that you want diversity when you put Republicans in the sociology department." If misquoted Sol, I'm sorry.
It's going to be something like that. But the point is, we can see there's essentially a coalition of people. There are the hardcore Christian nationalists. There are the sort of Jeffersonian Republicans. There are the more moderate center-right Republicans, then you've got the center-left people.
Classical liberals.
Yeah, the classical liberals, right? And then you've got the sort of center-left people. Was it Marianne Williamson who on the hot
having
mic
dinner with her Friday?
Was like, the Republicans are nice to me. These people are evil to me. You've got those people who oppose you.
Yeah.
Then you have like the TERFs, who are the radical feminists who believe in so you don't have intellectual homogeneity in the people who want to get rid of the woke, but you do have intellectual homogeneity in there.
Yeah.
So you can see they're not true. They're not telling the truth.
Yeah, they're not telling the truth. And I think it's really important that if somebody says something that's true and right, you stand by what they say,
regardless of who they are and what they.
So if someone's a Democrat or Republican and you're the opposite, or a Tory or Labor or whatever, or it doesn't matter what, and they want to pull plastic out of the ocean and they have a plan to do that, and that's a great idea.
Great idea. Yeah.
You should say you don't have to agree. You don't have to be in complete lockstep with everyone's belief.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to cross the aisle on something that's clearly wrong, like mutilating the genitals of children, then the problem is with you.
Yes.
Then you're the ideologue.
And it's awful as well, because, you're literally going to... I don't like making Nazi comparisons, but I bet there are a lot of people in Germany who are like, look, I don't like this persecution of Jews, but, I'm afraid of opposing this now, And I think a lot of these people are afraid of opposing all of this.
Yeah.
They know.
They're also... I would argue that those people are cowards.
Well, they are. That's exactly what they are. They're cowards. But anyway, right, just a quick thing on this, which I thought was funny, right? So they were very upset by this, right? But one academic said, the implementation of DEI offices and practices may be banned from college campuses, but the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion can never be removed from us, the people. And what they're saying there is, you can't stop us being racist. We're going to be racist, even if you legislate against it. We're going to hate white people. We're going to, condescend to black people, and we're going to do everything we can to screw everything up.
Yeah, we're going to do everything we can to institute the principles of equity.
Yeah.
So that means, well, it means trying to readjust shares to jerry-rig outcomes.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And they literally just say it. So, and they may as well be saying, look, you might kick me out, but I'm going to be a Nazi the whole time, and I don't care. That's what they're saying. So just get rid of them. Like, that's literally just let them go. Sorry, we're banning this thing. If you can't accept that, and you're like, no, I stand. Okay, fine, bye.
Yep.
It's good. It's good that you go.
So I'm not a big fan of prognostication. I'm going to make a prediction.
Go on.
And I hope I'm wrong, but the older I get, the more important I realize it is to become. Don't tell everybody you're smart. Make predictions. I'm going to make a prediction. I think this is going to fail.
Oh, really? Go on.
I do. I don't think I like Rufo.
Yep.
I support Rufo's effort.
Yep.
I do not think he will succeed. And even if he does succeed, you're talking about limited schools in one state.
And how long for? That's the question. Because in 20 years' time, it could be...
20 years' time, there'll be none of this, Matt. We will look back at this and we'll say, oh my God, what were we thinking?
Or
this was completely crazy.
Or it could be completely worse, that they captured the entire Zoomer generation. They grew up not being able to think outside of the...
Well, they've already done that.
Well, exactly. And so it could be that it's just so cemented. We end up literally like the Soviets in Chernobyl, where they're just like, well, I don't know how to process this.
Yeah.
I can't process the reality not being the same as what I'm being told from the authority.
Yeah.
And so... you're just wrong. There's no graphite on the roof, right? And so
I don't think that effort is going to succeed. I laud people who want to try to fix the K through 12 system or try to fix the university system. If that's what you want to do, if that's really how you want to spend your time, great. That is absolutely unequivocally not what I'm going to do. I'm going to build new things.
Good.
I mentioned University of Austin twice. I'm not going to wait around and cross my fingers that Chris Rufo succeeds.
I mean, Godspeed to him. I'm
100%, 100%. I mean,
but I agree with you. You've got to take a clear-eyed view on these things.
But I'm not waiting around to see if Chris Rufo succeeds. I'm going to do my own thing, and I hope Chris succeeds for sure. And I like Chris Rufo. Chris is a good friend of mine, and I hope he succeeds. I don't think he will succeed ultimately because I think that at the end of the day, we are going to realize that we have made some pretty horrific mistakes in profound mistakes in our judgment. But while that process is going underway, I'm going to build new things.
Good idea.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium contents on the site, such as the book clubs, this one on the Revolt Against the Modern World by Julius Evola. If you'd like to find out what's being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.